what's going on, everybody? This is Kevin Miller with the All Equity Podcast. Today, I'm so excited. This is my first time actually meeting the wonderful, the one and only Celia Daniel. Celia, what's going on? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Kevin. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm so honored to have this platform to talk about my story and also talk about, how can we as a community, as an ally, change the world. So I'm so glad to be here this morning.
So glad to have you. So glad to have you. I think we connected on LinkedIn. I was just really inspired by the work you're doing and really moved. I think a lot of people will be too when they hear your story. Could you tell us a little bit about what you've been through, where you grew up, and a little bit about just everything? We'd love to hear all that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know a lot of my life. So in a nutshell, I'm an Asian Indian. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a musician. I'm a composer. I'm a parent. I'm married to a beautiful woman. I am settled here in Southern California.
Nice.
But I lived half my life in India and also wanted to share some of my story because it's so important for people in both in India and across the globe to hear the story of a trans person living in both continents and sharing different points of view. So I would love to talk a little bit about my background before I can get into some of the topics we want to talk about today. So I grew up in a small town, I would say a small city in India. It's called Chennai, southern part of India. When I was 4 years old, my mom knew that I was a little different. I wanted to be a girl. And she knew that I was craving to be a girl, and I was covering my head with a sari. I was pretending to be a girl. It was very odd because I didn't know anybody. We don't have TV at the time. I have not seen too many women at the time. I was just 4 years old and a child. I was growing up in this little conservative Christian family. And all I knew was I wanted to be a girl. At that time, that was my only expression. My parents actually thought it was cute. Gotcha. They took pictures of me, which was actually nice, but it was nothing to do with my gender issues. Those were just some beautiful pictures. They wanted to keep them around at home. But what happened was when I was starting to grow up to 7 years old, I felt like I wanted to continue being a girl, and my mom knew that the social constructs of the colonial British government that was so predominant in India wouldn't allow me to do that. And also what we learned from the Christian household, one man and one woman, and that's it, there's nothing in between. So there was a lot of things running in my head because I wanted to be a girl, and I loved girls. I was not attracted to boys. And I didn't know what was going on with me at the time. But one thing I knew clearly was my gender wasn't doing justice to my anatomy. It was very clear that I was not identifying completely as a boy. I was identifying more as a girl, that every morning I would wake up and I had this white noise in my head that kept telling me, okay, now what are you going to do to prove to be a boy today?
Wow.
That's how it was.
Wow.
Running in my head, and I was thinking, okay, I'm going to make sure that I join volleyball. I'm going to play this so that people will have no clue that I'm going through a lot of feminine issues inside my head, which is now called gender dysphoria. But at the time, I had no idea. So growing up in that family, I was happy as a child, but I was always sad as well because I was not able to express my femininity to the maximum potential, that I was trying to battle with two genders, my birth gender versus my preferred gender. And so with all the society, with all the community back in India, I just suppressed my femininity and I learned to survive. And that's how my entire childhood was. In the process, I also, while I was in fourth grade, this is something really hard for me to say, but I was molested by my uncle. And it really put me at a point where I started to blame on myself. I said, I look different and that's why they did it to me. They are so okay.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know it was hard. I mean, I normally don't talk about it, but I want to share because it's not because of the Me Too movement, but even in India, a lot of LGBTQ folks are going through so much of abuse in the family, and even women are going through so much of abuse in their families, and they don't want to talk about it because it's such a taboo in the society. And the Indian community is a very closed community. They don't want to share anything that is shameful. It's always success stories. So as I was going through it, in the next 2 years, my cousin brother did the same thing to me again. And that's the time I was thinking to myself, why are these people doing this to me? What is it, is this how men are? Or why are they doing this to me? And I was feeling so ashamed. I couldn't talk to my mom about it. I couldn't talk to my dad about it because I was just carrying that shame. And that was too hard for a small child to go through, two abuses, molestation. And then I was also dealing with gender dysphoria, and I was always having this feeling of self-harm. I felt like I was not worthy. I was just, I felt so ashamed of myself life all the time that I harm myself, self-harm myself. And I used to, there was a time when I was dealing with gender dysphoria, and this is very important, especially for the Indian community to hear, is that in my 9th grade, I actually came out. I went outside in India for the first time, which is hard. And I wore a top and a skirt, and I was, covered my head with a scarf, and I went outside. I was walking through this construction site, and there was a watchman. They call them watchmen at the time, they're security. So he caught me and then said, what are you doing here? And then he looked at me closely and then said, you're a boy. What are you doing dressing up like a girl? And then he started getting so angry. And he started yelling at me. And I didn't know why he was angry at me. And since he was drunk in the night, everyone was joining and standing around me. Literally, I could breathe their alcohol breath on my face and my back of my neck. And I knew that day that I'm going to be exposed, of what I'm doing. And I was so scared. And I lived in a community where there was so much of hatred. They used the most derogatory language the Indian community can think about, and all kinds of language. And they were just yelling at me. I stood there for a while, and I was so scared because I thought they were going to tie me up and, take me to my parents. And they do all kinds of things if you're trans, and nobody would bother. Even if they kill you right there, people won't care because you are a scum of the society. At that time, I'm talking about early 70s. I stood there, I didn't cry, but I was so bold, and I was thinking to myself, I am not gonna tell my dad about it. You can do what you want to me right here. If you wanna, do whatever you want. You wanna beat me up, you wanna tie me, whatever, do something, but I don't want my parents to know. To that amount, the shame was so much on me that I did not want to take it to anybody. And fortunately, I spoke in a different language, and I confused them, asking directions to the market, and I walked away from that place, which was unique at the time. It doesn't happen so often. And I confused them because I was talking in a different language, and in Hindi, I spoke and I walked away, came back home crying, and I was thinking to myself, I want to die. I literally want to die. And then I tied my hands behind my back, and I put a plastic bag on my head, and I thought, how would it be to die? Let me experience that death. I just can't live. It's so hard for me to live because people like me don't live long, and I'm going to die. And I went to a point where my lungs in my chest was going out. It was completely yellow around my head, and I was thinking to myself, oh God, this is death. I'm going to literally die. I got so scared, and I pulled out one of my hand from my back, and I took out the plastic bag, and I was afraid to die, and I was also afraid to live. It was such a difficult time in my life that I was going through. I know a lot of kids in India go through so much today, and my story, I want to tell my story because I want all the parents to know that I couldn't talk to my parents about it. Though whatever I went through, I just went and sat on the beach and I cried my heart out. That was my therapy. And that's all I did. And I used to pray. I'm a Christian, and I used to pray all the time, looking at the sky, saying that, God, if you're out there, why did you make me like this? I don't want to be like this. Please change me. I take away all this femininity. I want to be a boy. I want to be normal. I can't be like this. I prayed, I went for meetings, I did lots of things, and nothing happened. God was quiet, and I didn't know what was going on. And I focused on my studies at the time because I was in a very conservative community where people were studying and doing well, and everyone wanted to be an astronaut, they wanted to be a pilot, and they wanted to be a professor, engineer, doctor. And you know what was running in my mind? I just wanted to survive as a girl. I wanted to be a girl. That was my ambition in life. It's so sad at the time. And fortunately, by God's grace, I did really well. In my studies, and I was working in a research institute, and then I got a good job. And at the time, my parents told me, "Hey, you want to get married? We're going to get a girl for you." And I was thinking to myself, I'm a girl. How am I going to marry another girl? Is it going to go away? And I was looking for information. I was looking for data as to, are there people like me? Am I the only person in this world? And I looked at the Hijra community in India, and I did not associate with them because they were into sex work and begging, and they were dancing, and they were more traditional people. I couldn't identify with them because being a Christian, I didn't identify with the traditional Hindu Hijra culture at the time. So I was thinking to myself, what is going on with my life? What can I do? And one thought hit me. It was a funny concept. It was like, oh, maybe if I get married, my wife will take away all this femininity, and I'm going to be good. Everything is going to go away. So I believed it truly, and we got married. And I was I was working at Dun & Bradstreet at the time in New York, and I came here for my business work. And I came here, and I was working with a lot of clients in New York, 42nd Broadway. And I was struggling in my hotel room at the time when I go back home to that was my hotel room. I was staying there. I didn't have a house at the time. I used to go back to the hotel room, take the curtain from the window and wrap it around myself. And that was the only way I could express my femininity. I didn't have any skirt. I didn't have any women clothing at the time. But my gender dysphoria was so bad that I really wanted to feel that femininity, and I used to do that. Even now thinking of it, it was so crazy. Why did I even do that? But I did that in a Days Inn motel. I remember that really well. Unfortunately, I didn't have any clue at the time what I was doing. I went on with my life and got married. I came here after we got married. My wife joined me, and 1 year after marriage, we had a great life, and suddenly it started coming back. My gender dysphoria hit me, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I cannot take it anymore. I'm married, and I can't afford to have my wife think that I'm a trans person. That's the last thing she wants to hear. And 3 years after we got married, we had a child. And I thought, if I have a baby, I actually thought I wouldn't be capable of, even bringing a baby into this world. I was so undermining my maleness that I was dealing with. Sometimes these are thoughts that runs into the heads of people who are like me, that maybe, we are not meant to bring babies into this world. But I didn't realize that I could even have the capacity to reproduce. Unfortunately, we had a beautiful girl baby. I was focusing my energy on my daughter because she was so beautiful, and I thought to myself, I don't want to bring another child into this world, another boy. If it happens, I don't want to have a second child because I don't want the boy to turn out to be like me. I was so scared at the time. And we only had one child, and then we moved on with our lives, but I could not deal with this. It was so hard. I told my wife one day in 2004 that, sweetheart, I'm going through a lot of issues. I really want to tell you that I'm going through something, but I didn't know how to tell her at the time. So I told her that I sometimes dress like a girl, and immediately in her mind she thought, if you're dressing like a girl, then don't dress like a girl. Don't do it. I was like, no. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going through I don't know what I'm going through, but I dress like a girl, and I was running out of words. I didn't know what to tell her. She said, just meet some therapist and get over this. I don't want my husband to be a trans. I spoke to a gay counselor who was a Christian at the time because that's all I knew at the time. I thought maybe this person is Christian. He might be compassionate to me. I spoke to him. We were living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. So, and being a person of color, I didn't know what issues I was going through, but I was so unconscious about all the issues that were going around at the time because I was dealing with my own issues living in Jacksonville, Florida. The gay counselor listened to me for an hour and he said, I am gay. And he said, you are a confused gay. You are a feminine gay. Then I told him, I am not interested in men. Why are you saying that I'm gay? And he said, yeah, a lot of people are in denial like you. And you are gay. And I knew at the time that this man was not the right person to talk to. I didn't want to. I was like, dude, seriously, this is all you got from this conversation? I've been telling you I'm not interested in men, and you're telling me that I am gay because I am living my life in denial. Probably you're not aware of what you're doing and how many lives you've damaged by telling these kind of things. Because he was partly right. At the time, the only people that in the trans community were cross-dressers or transsexuals. They call them transsexuals. But now it's different. Everyone is under the transgender umbrella, and everyone is called transgender, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't want to talk to him, but I told myself that I am going to take it to my grave. I'm not able to get any therapy. I can't talk to a counselor because they won't understand. And if this is the kind of response I'm getting, I'm not doing it. So I had a chance to also talk to another doctor who was trans at the time. And she told me that, hey, you look like a girl. Why don't you change your, at the time they called it as SRS, not GRS. She said, why don't you change your sex? You'll be fine. You'll be happy. And I was looking at that lady and thinking, who are you? Why are you telling me this? I didn't even ask you for my suggestion. I'm just meeting you in a party. We're just casually having this conversation. You're telling me that I need to change my sex because that's the right thing to do. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not meeting the right people. Why are these people telling me how to live my life rather than I want to do it myself? I'm a scientist. I'm an educated person. I have good degree. I worked on human genome projects. I worked on DNA. I worked on crystallography. And why are these people telling me what to do? So I started doing research. I started studying about what is going on. I read all the research articles and I found out that there are people like me, Mola, in this world, not just in North America, but in India, across Philippines, Canada, Australia, Europe, everywhere. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, this is a common thing. I'm not the only person who's alone in this world. And I was so happy at the time, and I was trying to tell people, hey, this is what is happening. And when I was coming out with my information and I attended conferences, I went for healthcare conferences and I was finding out a lot of data at the time. And I was thinking to myself that, oh, why did I always think that I'm such a shameful person? Actually, this is the way I'm born. And maybe I should just accept myself. That was my first step. Till then, I was in denial that I thought I could cure this disease at the time. I was thinking this is a disease that I'm going through. I want to get it away. But when you're born and you're wired differently in your DNA, and that's the way you're born, that's the way you are. And I knew that, oh, if this is going to be my life, then I'd rather just accept and find out how I can navigate my life based on this. And that's when my journey started changing. My depression went away. My sadness went away. My shame went away. My shame became more of an exploration. And I started looking at, people like me. I went to different communities, Latino community, African American community here. I met the Asian community, and I was talking to all the trans folks, and I was thinking to myself that I wasted my whole life so far just beating myself and sitting in a closet. I want to really tell people that, we are out and we are real. We are not perfect, but we are real people. And from then on, it started changing. I came out and I started telling my story. There was a gay pastor, a lesbian a couple who really helped me, and she was a pastor. And she said, Celia, your life is so powerful. Why don't you tell your story? And while I was coming out, I found that I'm also married. I have a child and my daughter was 15 years old, I I was finding it difficult to tell her that, your dad is a trans. I was hiding all the time, and she found out one day, and then she said, "Dad, why are you wearing a sari?" And she said, "I saw a picture of you on the computer and you were wearing a sari." And my wife told me, "Don't tell her about it. She doesn't need to know." The first thing that hit me in my head at that time was, she's 15 years old. If she doesn't hear from her father, she's going to get that information from someone else. And I don't want that thing to happen. I want my daughter to know that her dad struggled so much to be who he is today, who she is today. So I told her my story, the entire story that I told you today. And she was sitting and listening, and she said, "Dad, I'm so happy. I'm so proud of you." Within 25 minutes. And she said, "I'm so cool with it, Dad." And I was thinking to myself, children are so easy to understand. And my wife at the time was still struggling to accept me. It was 15 years since I told her. Now it's almost 19 years. And she's my biggest ally, my wife and my daughter. They understand me, and they know that I'm not just pretending to be a girl, but I'm born this way. And that made a big change in my family. And I started telling my story to the people outside my community, and I came out. And I faced a lot of, I would say, I faced a lot of backlash within the transgender community, because they were also trying to stereotype certain aspects of your life. They said, "Hey, you're Asian Indian, but you need to have your sex change. You need to change your gender reassessment. You have to go through gender reassessment surgery." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do it." Why? Because I don't want to do it. Why should I do it? I can socially transition. I don't have to medically transition. And they were like, "There's nothing called social transition. You're cheating. You're just fooling around. You're not true. You're not authentic." And I was thinking, oh my God, within trans community, people are not so welcoming. What is going on with this? I need to change this. So I went outside the trans community and I started getting involved with my community. And I found allies. I found people who are real out there. They were going through lots of immigration issues. They were going through gun violence. The Black Lives Matter issues that we're fighting now. There were so many issues that I got involved with. More working for civil rights, for healthcare, for homelessness, for incarceration of when trans folks get arrested, they're put in male prisons. If I'm put in a male prison, you know how it's going to be. It's going to be hard for them because they are dead. It's a suicide right there. And there are so many things that I wanted to change in the community, and I started coming out and I started doing a lot of my talking, and my business background really helped me. I started putting some ideas for the California Endowment, working with Trans Latino Coalition. I was able to come up with some ideas. I was also working with organizations, and I'm a management consultant. I was doing strategy consulting for more than 25 years for healthcare and life sciences. And now I was using all my experience to come out, and people were asking me, I was a senior executive in a company and I don't have to come out. And people were telling me that, Celia, why are you coming out? This is such a shameful thing. You are getting 6-figure salary. You have a great house here. You're settled in life. Why do you want to come out as trans? That's the lowest thing you can ever do to yourself.
Wow.
And most of my friends told me that. And I said, hey, I'm standing in the gap for people like me. If you don't want to stand, that's up to you. It's your journey. But my journey, I feel like I need to help people like me. And they are struggling. They're going through gender dysphoria. There are children who are coming out. They're struggling. They need to know. Parents need to know that these stories need to be heard. And once I started telling my story and I started talking to them, corporate companies started thinking about, okay, Celia, tell us what to do. We want to change our company policies. What can we do? So I sat with them, and I was, one thing I learned was patience. You can't just go and change everything, because they are not that way. So we have to work from top down and from bottom up, both approach, and find some middle grounds where we can educate them and also help them educate. You just don't want to be doing these panels, conversations, and then walking away. But we want to work with them systematically to change it. So I joined this organization in the board called Trans Can Work. So Trans Can Work is not just getting jobs and empowering the trans community, but also Trans Can Work helps the organizations. They train the organizations, they certify the organizations, they certify the employees, and they train them in such a way that when trans people are put in their teams, when they're working with a team, when they're working in an organization, they get used to working together. It's more of productivity. It's not about their issues. And though you have other intersectionalities, they believe that when you're working in an organization, there are so many differences within the organization, like ethnicities, class. There's color issues. There are so many. You're an immigrant. There are lots of other issues that the companies are dealing with. Being a veteran. And being in the LGBTQ spectrum. So I started thinking about it and started putting together some ideas and trainings and materials. So I'm also reaching out to my friends in India to make some change, because my heart is in India. I came from there, and I worked in India too. I never came out when I was at the time. So now I'm out. I've started my own company. I'm also doing management consulting for some of the life sciences firms, and I see that people, when you focus on productivity, when you're professional in what you're doing, that really it kind of encompasses all the other issues in life. But unfortunately, it's still not there. There's a bias. They would rather accept me as Daniels rather than Celia. They would like to see a guy doing a presentation than a trans girl doing a presentation on a strategy. Unfortunately, that has to change. And that's where I'm working towards this, and I'm trying to help these organizations. So that is my story in a nutshell. And I have, I'm sorry, I've been talking a lot. I just wanted to first empty all the things that happen in the background as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, so that I can then get to the next part of our conversation as to how can we change what's happening today, and why allyship is important. So I'm just going to let pause here and just.
Well, first thing I'd love to say is I was holding back tears the whole time. I'm so sorry as an interviewer. That was hard for me. Thank you for being here and being your authentic self today. This could have gone a lot of different ways. I've done a lot of these and helped, supported a lot of people in their business and personal life journey. And the way you just showed up so correct, and I didn't even need to step in. I didn't even feel the need to step in because it was just coming out so pure. It was like everything was, all that beautiful energy was just inside of you, ready to come out. And I'm so grateful that I just got to experience that.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. And, all the kids out there that are going through what you're going through right now, just know that. It's important.
I'm just, because that is one thing that I wanted to focus on. So I have 3 goals in my life. One is I wanted to, I don't want to build monuments for ourselves. We want to build pathways for the children. And especially when we want the children to live in a world where they are all different and they embrace the differences. And I found that in my daughter. She's 20 years old now. And I'm so happy that, I'm beginning to cry because I didn't expect my daughter to be my best ally. She's like, Dad, you look cool. And I told her, you can always call me Dad, and it's not going to change. Your dad might be trans, but that doesn't mean you have a beautiful mom, and I love your mom, but nothing's going to change our family the way we are. So, it's so nice to live in a family where everyone understands you. And I feel that I want kids like my daughter growing up to just take away all these cultural changes. And she was right there, fighting for Black Lives Matters. And she went for all the protests. And I called my wife. We all went as a family for all the protests. And we've been educating our South Asian community about all the systemic, the oppression that more than 400 years the Black community has been going through. And we were educating about the civil rights movement in 1965 that led pathway for people like me to come to this country, which was not there. So we were educating our own community, because sometimes, I feel like sometimes they don't get it. It's so hard. And I have faced a lot more oppression within the South Asian community and the community that I belong to, and I want to make a change and difference. And because all life matters is not right now. No, it's not. This is
It's
not
just
the
a
time.
microaggression. We all
Yeah, it's
don't
not
want
the
to be
time
honest
for
about it, but that's what exactly what it is a
exactly.
microaggression designed to keep us where we're
Yeah.
at, in our mind where we're
We
at.
said no. This is not time for all life matters. I
Right.
know your life matters, but not right now. Focus
Exactly.
on what is the issue at hand and how do we resolve that issue,
Right.
and try to understand why people say all Black life matters. I have trans friends who are trans men who are going through problems that men
Mm.
are facing, and people don't focus on those kind of issues. I know trans men, Black men are getting arrested, and but what about trans men? It's a very different
Mm.
situation. What about women, Black women who are going through? What about people of color, who are getting killed?
Yeah.
16 people got killed. Trans women of color got killed just this year. Last year, 27 of them got killed. A lot of them are people of color. 90% of them are people of color. And
Yeah.
being a person of color, I can relate to that, because sometimes I'm scared walking in those bars, and I have faced situations in my own life living in California, the most liberal place. I felt so insecure.
Mm.
Going back home, I've faced lots of issues and lots of derogatory ways which people have addressed me at the time, and I know how difficult it is, because sometimes it's important for us to understand that we are all fighting for being free, and we are fighting for our rights. We want to use a bathroom. Why
Mm.
is that an issue?
Mm.
You're not going to do anything there. You just want to sit in a bar and have a drink. Why do people come and keep telling me how much? I'm not even asking you anything. And that's the kind of people that I've faced. When I want to just have a drink with my friends, they'll come and say, how much?
Mm.
Like, what is running in your head? Why do you come and this is what you do? You don't go to a woman and, just because I'm trans, I'm not into sex. I have a family. I'm a decent person. I don't want to do it. I mean, it's not that I don't condemn sex work, because I have a lot of friends who do sex work. But you shouldn't be looking at everybody like that.
Mm.
You cannot always undermine people because of what they do and how they look, and you cannot do that. So it's such a difficult thing, and I always believe that we need to hold each other's hands. So allyship is such an important thing, where the first thing that I always tell the community is, ally is accept, listen, learn, and then have the yearning to help them.
I love
Don't
that.
just
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat
yeah,
that acronym?
absolutely. So as an ally, you need to accept, you need to listen, you need to learn, and then have the yearning to help them. A yearning comes from the heart. It's not just like, I'm going to give you some money. So it comes from the heart. So you're really having that yearning to help people. And that is ally I've come up with this definition. And I want people to think about it before trying to help. It's not about just going and helping, but also understanding. And the first thing is listening. Very, very important. They don't do it.
Right.
That's why people think, Kevin, they listen to my story and they say, oh, I didn't know about this. And I ask them, why? Because you've not been listening. You just look at me and say, oh, yeah, I know a trans person. I have a trans person in my office. No, that's different. It's not that. Every trans person has a story. Every brown person has a story. Every brown trans has a story. Every black trans has a story. Listen to the stories first. Understand why we are different. And that's why I gave you the background, because if I just started saying that I'm a trans person, given my story,
It's so much more. So much more.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you're growing up with, and sometimes now I go back to India, I'm able to relate to some of the issues the kids are going through. And I tell the parents, even in our community here in the support groups, I tell the parents that let them, when they say that they have an issue, first thing is listen to them. Don't throw your suggestion. And don't say that, oh, no, not, I get it. A lot of kids are like you. This is not going to happen to you. You're okay. Don't say that. Just
active listening
to your child. And they say, but my child is only 4 years old. You know what? I was 4 years old. I didn't know what was going on. I had no influence at the time. And I don't believe that multimedia or TV or anything is changing kids these days. You have more information. In fact, you have more information to understand yourself more than what I had those days, because I didn't have any information to understand myself. Now it should be much better. Mental health needs to change in India too. I've spoken a lot about this to the Indian community, that, how do we bring a lot more mental health in India?
Right. I think one of the things we should talk about too is therapy, and then we'll wrap up in a few minutes here. But for me, therapy has been critical for me to elevate myself and accept the things about myself that are scary. How have you been experiencing the same thing, or going to therapy as well, or found that?
Yeah, the funny thing was, I had to educate my doctor. I told him, hey, I'm gender fluid, and I'm actually I'm gender fluid, and I'm a non-op trans. So
Gotcha.
I prefer to live my life more as Celia in a social setting, and I'm socially out. But I've not medically changed because I didn't want to change medically.
Right.
And there are people like me who are gender non-conforming also. And so I believe that when I went to my doctor and told my doctor that I'm trans, the first thing the doctor told me was, okay, how is your life? And he did not understand what is gender dysphoria. He said, can I give you an anxiety medicine? And I told him, no, it's not yeah. I told him, I go through this spouts of, my anxiety level is high, and I was telling him, when I get gender dysphoria, it's always high, and then you're sad. The reason you're sad is because you cannot live in your gender. You're kind of switching between genders. And that is one of the consequences, or I would say the after effects of, being gender fluid or non-op trans. But what I found was the medical community is not capable, or they don't know much enough to treat the patients. And my doctor's from UCLA. And
wow.
He didn't know about. So he recommended me to a therapist who was not even a gender, who doesn't know much about gender dysphoria. And I looked at my own directory, and since I have a lot of contacts with close to mental therapists in my community, I reached out to them and I said, hey, do you take this insurance? Do you take this insurance? What do you do? And then they all said, oh, this insurance is good and this is what you do. But unfortunately, Kevin, it's not very open, because they are very generic about certain things. When you say you have a problem, they kind of put you in a bucket there. This is how you're. This is the issue. So, and unfortunately, the doctors say, the only way you can get over your gender dysphoria is to change your gender. But not everybody wants to change, because 27% of the youth in California are gender non-binary. Why? They don't want to identify as a male or female. There's so much of patriarchy everywhere, so much of discrimination, that they're saying, you know what? I don't care what gender I am. That's immaterial. I'm a person. I'm a human being. And that is, I cannot believe that the younger generation has taken this, another notch. In 2025, you probably might have 75% of the youth in California as gender non-binary. They are predicting that.
Wow.
So the companies are not ready yet.
Right. The companies are not ready yet. That's a fact.
Yeah. Medical companies are okay if you go to the company, and if I'm ready to change my gender and live as a woman, they'll be fine. They'll be like, right. Oh, cool. We give you 2 thumbs up. I said, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to be gender non-binary. They're like, okay, you need to make a decision now.
Right.
That's how they look at it, right? But it doesn't matter. It's like a person is coming to office in a jeans, and person is coming in a suit one day, and the person is, very different in a different attire. It doesn't matter how you look. You can have a hairstyle. It all ends up in a productivity in how you're professionally there to contribute to the success of your organization. End of the day, period. If they're not doing work well, then you can probably talk to them. But I think judging a person even before they give you some output, or even before they deliver the work in a professional environment, is very unprofessional to me. The funny thing is this, right? I went looking for a job as Celia, and I got a desk clerk job when I have done business for multi-million dollars across the globe. I have sold businesses. I've done case management businesses across the globe. And here, when I came out as Celia, oh, we have a case manager job for you. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this needs to change.
Wow, I see.
And that is where, and then I actually went in a suit for a job
Uh-huh.
And they were ready to give me a job. I had 3 interviews in 1 month, but I didn't have a job as Celia for 6 months. But as Daniels, in 1 month, I had 3 interviews lined up. And they just look at your name, they look at your
Mm.
experience. You're a guy. We need you right now. Oh, you're trans? Oh, yeah. We like trans people. Can you
Mm.
come
We'll
and
get
work?
back to you.
I'm tired of it. So that's when I started my own company, because
Gotcha.
even LGBTQ companies and LGBTQ organizations within companies, they need to understand about the gender non-binary, and
Gotcha.
then having policies around it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. This was absolutely incredible, and my heart's so filled. Thank you for inspiring me, inspiring. I know there's so many people that will learn so many things, so many gems from you, and I'm more than I'm sure we'll be doing this again very soon as well.
absolutely, Kevin. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your platform, and I thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm
Of
sorry I did
course.
most of the talking, but
No, please don't be sorry. Please don't be sorry. That's exactly what was needed for this.
absolutely, thank you so much, and I look forward to our conversations going. We have a lot to talk about, and
We do. We do.